Hi, my name is Courtney Camphin. I am the Special Projects Coordinator at the Spiritual Life Center. As most of you know, we are going through a period of transition between some leadership. Oscar Brockmeyer has stepped down, and we are stepping into having a new executive director. And I'm really, really excited to have Nancy Benben, who will be taking that position with me tonight. Hi, Nancy.
Great. Thanks, Courtney. Um, it's really great to be here. It is an honor and it's daunting and it's a huge privilege to be taking on this role. And glad that Oscar will still be here as director of programs and program leader, and that I will be working side by side with him as executive leader, and of course working with you and the other wonderful members of staff. So I'm very excited about getting started, and very happy to be talking to you today. This is a wonderful process to be going through.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's some wonderful opportunities ahead of us. So, for people who may not know you or may not be familiar with you, would you mind sharing maybe a little snippet of who's Nancy Benben?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I am, believe it or not, a transplant from the Chicago area. I went to school out there, had a lot of firsts out there. And I think of myself very much as a Midwesterner. I was raised obviously by people from the Midwest, and it was a difference to come to Connecticut. Very, very big difference, but learned to love it. And now, of course, I was part of the COVID exodus that moved out to Cape Cod. We've had a house out here for a number of years, and we moved about a year before COVID hit, and COVID had just accelerated things quite a bit. I am married. I have three children. We have three children between us, one of whom is getting married this summer.
Oh,
So this
wow.
is pretty exciting. Yes, yes, my daughter is getting married. So this is a big event in the family right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I have always had a career from professionally that's been a blend of communications as well as marketing, as well as facilitation, and some fundraising as well. And about 12 years ago, I decided to switch the focus of my career from corporate, where I had spent most of my time, to really be very much around nonprofits and be in the nonprofit world, because I felt it was really time to live my passions and to also live my conscience and to give back a little bit.
Mm.
So the last 12, 13 years or so have been spent in nonprofits. And in the Hartford area, as well as out here in the Cape Cod area, Northeast. So that's a little bit about my career.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Um, so I've heard your name around a bunch around the center. You came and did a wonderful presentation on the Enneagram in our internship. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about your history with the Spiritual Life Center, because it seems like you have a fair bit.
Sure, sure. Well, I think of the Spiritual Life Center almost as my second home. It is a
Mm.
place where I've spent a lot of time virtually, and of course in person. So I've always known to have a presence of the divine in my life. There has never been a time in my growing up and in my earliest years where I haven't really sensed a spirit or a God or just something bigger than me. I've always had that sense. Obviously, it's changed quite a bit through the years, and as I've gained wisdom and learned and gone down different paths. But it's always been very central to my life. When I guess it was about 2005, 2006, I was in part of the Women's Leadership Institute in what is now HIU, what was then Hartford Seminary. And that really kicked up my leadership and kicked up my spirituality quite a bit. And it broadened my horizons. And I learned about different aspects of my spirituality and spirituality in general that I wasn't really aware of. And so it both broadened and deepened. So that got me a little more involved in the spiritual world as another part of my life, more than just, attending a faith community. Um, and then, believe it or not, when my husband and I were on our honeymoon, we went to the Omega Institute, which is in Rhinebeck, New York,
Yeah.
and we took part. Have you been there?
I've driven by it.
Oh,
I'm
it's an
familiar.
amazing place.
Hmm.
Amazing place. So, um, uh, part of my one of my what I think of as a spiritual mentor who has no idea who I am, but a spiritual mentor has been Elizabeth Lesser, who is one of
Hmm.
the founders of Omega Institute, and she was leading a retreat just on your own spirituality, and she's written many books, and who all of which have really spoken to me. So when she was leading this retreat, we decided, well, let's just go for 4 days as part of our honeymoon. And after that was over, it was truly life changing. And I came out of that retreat knowing I have to find more of this in my day-to-day life. I
Mm.
must find a place or a world or a way that I can just really continue to nurture my spirituality. So I called at that time the most spiritually connected person I knew was Melina Rudman, who is a former executive director of Spiritual Life Center. And she said, I know just this place. And she introduced me to the Spiritual Life Center. I had no idea it was even in my backyard. And I started in spiritual companionship. And then I also took the Pathways program, which was it was a program that really enabled folks to see a very broad range of spiritual traditions and spiritual paths. Joe Coletti was one of the teachers. And at the same time, they were starting to recruit for the internship program. So I picked up one of the brochures for the internship program, and I just had this amazing energy that came through me. And I knew that that was my holy speaking to me. And I opened the brochure and I read it and I said, why, yes, I must have this. So I went through the internship program. I became a partner, and then after that, I was one of the teachers with Oscar, as well as Louise. I took Louise Coletti's place, so Oscar and Andre and I were a team for one session. So it's been a part of my life for a really long time. I went through the supervisory program. I also learned about biospiritual focusing, and been taking many, many, many other programs. Obviously, I still see a number of seekers, and I'm a supervisor as well. So I think the other formative part about the Spiritual Life Center for me and my involvement there was when we were going through a pretty tumultuous time about 6 or so years ago. And there was a very, very big change in leadership. And there were a lot of questions around what is it that we are at the Spiritual Life Center? And now, in this tumult, where is Spirit leading us? What is it that we really need to be? And so we decided as a community to do a year of discernment, and I was leading the committee that took us through and the community through a year of discernment to really consider, where is God leading us now? What is it that we are meant to be? And that was an amazing year of deep wisdom of the men and women around me as part of that committee, as well as the community who gave us incredible guidance, and has all been part of the path of where the spiritual life center is now. So that's a little bit of my involvement in the Spiritual Life Center.
If that's a little bit, it must be. I mean,
Well, I look at,
it's a lot.
I feel like a newbie still, so much to
Hmm.
learn. There is so much great wisdom, and there are so many people from whom I learn at the Spiritual Life Center. I still feel very much like a newbie, and, very much more secure in my footing as a spiritual
Hmm.
companion and all of that, all of what I do. But I also know how much there is to know and how much I don't know. And it's
Mm.
wonderful to have wisdom around me to help guide and to help me learn and keep learning and my whole spiritual life, I'm sure.